Science. It doesn't care about your feelings, doesn't care about your politics, or your fan theories. It's cold, unforgiving, and it never signs NDAs. That's why I trust it. I was balls deep in my inner monologue when she walked in. Detective, I've got a case. There's word about town. Children are going missing, you see. Missing children. Sounds like the opposite of my problem. There's a candy man in town, goes by the name Willy Wonka. They say he's been luring children into his factory, never to be seen again. That ain't my department, doll. Better call CPS. They say he's invented a candy, an Everlasting Gobstopper. They say no matter how long you suck on it, it never gets smaller. Hold on, did you say never gets smaller? Yes, but what about the There are a great many things that get smaller when you suck on them. Most of which I can't say on YouTube. But a candy that doesn't get smaller? That's a textbook case of entropy violation. I'm on it. So, you'll take the case? Damn right. No one breaks the laws of thermodynamics. Not on my watch. I'll leave it in your capable hands, Detective. And please, Detective, find out what happened to those poor children. What children? Welcome to the very first Science Crimes, where we'll be taking our beloved childhood memories and crushing them under the boot of scientific reality. My name is Sevda. Friends call me Sevi. And please feel free to join me in my favorite pastime of overthinking absolutely fucking everything, as we attempt to answer questions like, is it possible to make an everlasting gobstopper? Can you transmit a human being using television? Can a rover of chocolate actually exist? That's what the script says. That's what it says. Autocorrect did not help me out there. Anyway, time to get the CDC and CPS on speed dial, because today we will be investigating Willy Wonka's OSHA-violating chocolate factory. Let's investigate some crimes against science. If you're somehow not familiar with the movie, or repressed the memory in an act of self-preservation, it's the story of Willy Wonka, who is the world's most famous and mysterious candy maker. So Willy's getting a little older, Willy's getting up there in age, so he realizes that he'll eventually need someone to take over the factory from him. So he comes up with this brilliant marketing strategy of hiding 5 golden tickets in random bars of chocolate, and these chocolates are dispersed all over the world for some randos to find. At this point, no one actually knows that Wonka's trying to get a potential new person to take over the factory, and now this is science crimes and not business crimes, but is that really the best way you can find a new CEO? Is that really the best way to recruit a new candidate? Whatever. Can you imagine if Nestle decided to put tickets in their random bars of chocolate to find their CEO, and people who find them end up being people like 67-year-old Margaret, who's a retired teacher from Scotland. None of her family knows that she moonlights as a Valorant Twitch streamer, and while she's actually very good at it, she still uses archaic terms like Pones Noobs, or 38-year-old Todd Jenkins. He goes by T-Bone online. He's from Arkansas, and he streams flat earth conspiracy rants in his truck and thinks the Everlasting Gobstopper is a deep state tracking device. Someone else may have gotten a golden ticket in a swag bag and probably left it there or forgot it. Someone else who found it in Romania didn't even know a contest was going on and just threw it away. So what I find interesting is that even though people of all ages all over the world were apparently looking for these tickets, you mean to tell me, say, that the only people in the world who found the golden tickets were all little white children of a certain age bracket? Willy Wonka's race! So anyway, does he conduct interviews for the best possible candidate? Someone with actual experience running a large-scale operation? No. His bar is apparently so low that he needed someone as short as a child to pick it up. Yeah, anyway, let's start with the pièce de résistance, Willy Wonka's famous chocolate river. Liquid chocolate is basically sugar, water, and fat. And do you know what loves sugar, water, and fat? Bacteria. All of them. Trying to do this in real life would be a buffet for pathogenic microorganisms of all kinds. But let's put our mad scientist hats on and let's see if it actually could work out. So many sources say that in a 1971 version of the film, 150,000 gallons of real chocolate and cream were used, but that's apparently not true. Thank goodness. But apparently the river stunk to high heaven until they added conditioners. That's the real part. Augustus was going to town on that river, so I would think there's at least sugar in that river, if not dairy and sugar. Let's work with that breeding ground for various bacteria. Let's meet our contestants. E. coli, a type of bacteria that normally lives in the intestines of humans and animals. Most strains are harmless, but some can cause food poisoning, leading to diarrhea, stomach cramps, and sometimes serious illness. Salmonella, the gift that keeps on giving. A bacteria commonly found in raw or undercooked meat, poultry, eggs, and sometimes fruits or vegetables. It can cause foodborne illness with symptoms like diarrhea, fever, stomach cramps, and vomiting. Listeria, a bacteria that can survive in cold environments, even the fridge. It can cause a serious infection called listeriosis. Symptoms include fever, muscle aches, diarrhea, and in severe cases, complications like meningitis. Fun! Anyway, the river would need to undergo some serious pasteurization to kill microbes and require industrial scale pumps running 24/7 in order for that to actually work out. Energy costs alone would bankrupt a small country. And speaking of keeping things fresh, Natural Habitat Shorts actually just taught me that people used to throw frogs in milk to keep it fresh because frogs have antimicrobial properties. So I wouldn't put it past Wonka if he threw some frogs in that river, in that chocolate. So let's explore some temperature problems. If you keep the river too cool, which is about 60 degrees Celsius or 140 degrees Fahrenheit if you're a Yankee, it's a big microbial risk if milk and sugar is present. But if it's too hot, 75 degrees Celsius, the flavors will cook off, proteins will denature, and the sugar can possibly caramelize. So you'd have to keep that river within a temperature range of 65 to 70 degrees Celsius. So that means that that river's temperature would have to be within a range that's comparable to a cup of hot coffee. If he's actually properly pasteurizing the river and Augustus fell into it, his ass would get cooked. Honestly, that's actually probably what Wonka was going for, because Willy Wonka is a psycho. So anyway, can it be done? Maybe. The chocolate river would probably only be viable as a sterile, closed-loop experience with viewing windows. You shouldn't even be in the same room as the river because you can risk contaminating it with airborne microbes. I know that Wonka was super pissed off at Augustus for falling into the river because he contaminated the river and so on and so forth. But let me say something for a second because this legit pisses me off. I think Augustus did nothing wrong. Willy Wonka invited all the kids and their people to feast on the diabetic wonderland before them. He did not specify that anything was off limits. Augustus just happened to dip into one of the many edible things in the room. I don't blame him for thinking that it was part of the attraction, just like everything else. So it's not like Wonka clearly said, you can have everything in this room, but don't touch the river. So unless he put it somewhere in the fine print of that contract NDA situation, that I think that was unfair. I stand Augustus and his rotund rights. I would go up to Wonka and say, listen, if the thick is legit, you must acquit. Anyway, Fizzy Lifting Drinks. All right, so let's explore the science of fizzy lifting drinks. Side note here, but I think each kid was supposed to represent one of the 7 deadly sins, even though there weren't 7 kids, but I think that each kid was supposed to represent a 7 deadly sin, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if I heard that somewhere or if I researched. Anyway, Augustus would have been gluttony. Veruca would have been greed. Pride would be the blueberry bitch. Sloth would be Mike, TV obsessed. And I don't know, we're dealing with children, so I don't think Roald Dahl would have had one of them representing lust. Unless that's Wonka himself with his probably lust for destruction and minors. I can only imagine that while every kid is being knocked off one by one. He's just there in the back watching each kid's demise, just wonking his Willy. Anyway, fizzy lifting drinks. Charlie and Grandpa Joe steal some fizzy lifting drinks and they end up floating towards the ceiling, and in order to get down they have to burp. So let's break down why this is scientifically stupid. In order to float in the air, your average density must be less than the air around you, which is about 1.2 kilograms per meters cubed at sea level. Almost forgot to add that. Very important. Because the density of the air changes as you... Anyway, human body density is approximately 1,000 kilograms per meters cubed. So you're about 800 times too dense to float. Adding a carbonated drink is not really going to change that by much. It's like putting a brick in a hot tub and expecting the bubbles to make it rise. Here's a problem volume-wise. To lift an average 50 kilogram child, you would need to displace 50 kilograms of air. That's about 41 meters cubed of gas. And that's the volume of a moving truck. For an average 80 kilogram adult like Grandpa Joe, one would need about 67 meters cubed of gas. A soda-sized drink produces at best 1.5 liters of CO2. So anyway, even if your stomach became a gas factory, the amount required would rupture your stomach and intestines long before producing lift. Adult lung capacity is about 6 liters, so filling your lungs with helium would only reduce your weight by about 7 grams. Congratulations, you still weigh 79.993 kilograms and you're still not floating. Constant burping under pressure could collapse your lungs and tear your esophagus. Alright, here's my favorite. Violet's transformation. She likes to outdo herself, trying to win chewing gum world records and all sorts of nonsense. But in the Johnny Depp version, her competitiveness is ramped up times a gazillion. And boy, is her mother I wonder if I can do her face. I think I just creeped myself out. Hold on. Creepy ass mom.
Oh, they're from Atlanta. That explains a lot.
So anyway, Wonka somehow invents chewing gum that mimics the experience of a full 3-course meal. And despite his very weak attempt at warning her, Violet takes the gum because gum is her thing. And she chews it, and she claims that she can feel the soup running down her throat. The roast beef dinner, followed by dessert, blueberry pie. But there's a slight malfunction when it comes to the blueberry pie, and she starts to turn a nice shade of blue. Then she starts to inflate. No, well, not inflate. She's actually filling with juice, apparently. She's turning into a giant blueberry. So naturally, as one does when a child fills up with liquid, the Oompa Loompas suggest juicing her. I really don't even know what to say about this. So anyway, for Violet's body to inflate like this, her tissues would need to fill with air or massive amounts of liquid. And here's the problem. Human skin has elasticity limits. So she would not gradually puff up like a balloon animal, she would explode. Even if by some miracle her skin could stretch like that, her internal organs would be crushed, her lungs would collapse, and her circulatory system would fail. Also, her bones would snap under the pressure, and she would be dead long before reaching the blueberry state. Oh, and she still talks while she's inflating, which would make no sense because her vocal cords should be compressed into oblivion. Okay, side note, are there any female Oompa Loompas? Because I don't know, they all seem to be male. I don't think we encounter a female Oompa Loompa anywhere, unless some of them are female and the species just has some very low sexual dimorphism. Also, why is the hair on their head green and the eyebrows white? You know what, I'm gonna stop this train of thought because it's going into the wrong station. Anyway, let's move on to the Everlasting Gobstopper. A candy that never shrinks, never dissolves, and changes flavors forever. Violation of a little something called entropy, the fundamental law that says that everything breaks down with use. For the gobstopper to remain unchanged, it would need to defy the laws of mass and energy conservation. No known material can resist dissolution or wear indefinitely, especially when exposed to saliva and mechanical forces. Here's what actually happens when you put candy in your mouth. Saliva is acidic with a pH of about 6.5 to 7, so it dissolves sugar on contact. That's not a bug, that's a feature, that's just how taste works. An everlasting candy would need to be completely immune to acid, which means it's not candy, it's stone. And after about 10 minutes in your mouth, you wouldn't have a flavor-changing treat, you'd have a germ-encrusted plaque magnet accumulating months of mouth funk. Appetizing. Plus, mass has to go somewhere. If it's truly everlasting, you're essentially sucking on a bacterial breeding ground. Where does the flavor come from if nothing dissolves? Cool, but the crown jewel of scientific impossibility has to be Wonka's TV chocolate system thing, whatever. In my opinion, possibly the most egregious of the lot. And I say this because this scene actually masquerades as something that tries to make scientific sense, but it don't. So anyway, in this scene, Wonka transmits a real gargantuan-sized chocolate bar to a television screen across the room. And it's real. You can reach into the television and pick it up, take the chocolate, you can eat it. It's essentially just a much smaller version of the same chocolate bar. Now, Mike offers an explanation and claims that television breaks things up into tiny particles and whizzes it around through the air or some foolishness, and that the particles reassemble on the other side, ending up on another screen but smaller, which is bullshit. Now, aside from the crime of wasting a crap ton of chocolate, why would you do this? You could feed those Oompa Loompas for a year on that one chocolate bar alone. What are you doing, Wonka? Oh, I forgot you're a sociopath. This is how television actually works. Television transmits light and sound waves converted into electrical signals. The screen reconstructs this as images, not actual matter, and TVs do not teleport objects, they display information about objects. If TV worked like Wonka claims, I'm pretty sure every kid would have grabbed their favorite cartoon character straight out of the screen by now. I would have grabbed me some Sonic. So let's pretend you could somehow digitize matter. In order to transmit a human being, you would need to scan and store the position of every single atom in Mike's body. About Mike shrinking. So atoms have a fixed size determined by quantum mechanics. You can't just make atoms smaller because you feel like it. Atoms are about 0.1 nanometers in size and they cannot be compressed. So if Mike is about 1/10 his original height, he must contain 99.9% fewer atoms. So where did all this mass go? If it just vanished, we've just unleashed 10 to the 19th joules of energy, which is equivalent to billions of nuclear bombs. Nice. Either way, the factory and probably the surrounding country would be a smoking crater. Or the world. I'm pretty sure the Earth could not withstand billions of nuclear bombs. Even if you could somehow reassemble him correctly, and the chance of placing trillions of atoms in exactly the right configuration is essentially zero, a mini Mike would not be able to function biologically. Why? So, for one thing, blood vessels would be too small for red blood cells, lungs would not be able to scale down below cell size, and also neurons can't be reduced. A mini Mike would not be able to speak normally, or speak at all, really. Okay, serious talk now. If you've ever had to deal with children, I know exactly what you're thinking. Could we use a black hole to atomically disassemble a child? Well, the answer is yes, but only in the same way that a blender disassembles fruits into a smoothie. So here's how it would go. When you put your pet human in a black hole, feet first, depending on the size of the black hole, you would get different results. If it's something called a supermassive black hole, you will cross the event horizon intact and then it will shred you apart. What is the event horizon? The event horizon is what is called the point of no return in a black hole. That is where the gravity is so strong that nothing, not even light, can escape that point. If it's a smaller black hole, however, it will stretch out that kid before they even reach the event horizon. This delightful process is called spaghettification. Why am I doing this? So let's talk about spaghettification. So if we put Mike into that small black hole, the tidal forces would stretch Mike vertically and compress him horizontally until he resembles a very long, very dead piece of pasta. The gravitational difference between his head and his feet would literally pull him apart atom by atom. So yes, technically you'd get atomic disassembly, but with all the structural integrity of overcooked linguine, I guess. Here's the fun part, if it wasn't fun already. According to Hawking radiation theory, information about what fell into a black hole may eventually leak out over billions of years, but scrambled beyond recognition. So theoretically, after waiting longer than the age of the universe, you might get Mike back as random subatomic particles with no memory, personality, or structural integrity. Cool. So there you have it, folks. I think the only thing we've scientifically proven is that Wonka is an absolute piece of work. Straight up psycho. He's great. But hey, at least Charlie got the factory in the end, because nothing says child safety like handing over a biological weapons facility to an 11-year-old. Is he 11? Because I just made that up. I don't remember. Remember, kids, if a strange man in a purple coat offers you candy from his windowless factory, all your dreams might come true. Or he could traffic you, I guess. It sounds strangely like a pimp. So anyway, this is not a science crime or anything, but I did want to comment on the tunnel ride. In this ass-clenching sequence, Wonka takes his guests through a psychologically jarring joyride and I guess starts having a psychotic break while piloting everyone through a sensory torture chamber. Rapid strobing lights in confined spaces are a known trigger for photosensitive epilepsy. Wonka basically turned his boat into a mobile seizure machine. Add a claustrophobic tunnel, disturbing imagery, and his unhinged poetry about danger and death and all of that, and you've got a recipe for lifelong PTSD. Wonka is one creepy psychotic motherfucker. I love him. Anyway, thanks for watching Science Crimes. It's been quite a while since I've been on YouTube, so maybe you can welcome me back by fondling that subscribe button there. I'm actually having fun doing this, so feel free to comment some suggestions on what to scientifically pick apart next. I didn't come up with a way to end these things. Bye.